Hey, just a short heads up before this episode, because this is a relatively new game and it is all about spoilers. I want to let you know this episode is entirely spoiler free, so you can learn all about Blueprints before its release and after it and everything else in between without having to worry about any spoilers. Okay, enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Post Games, a podcast about why and how we love video games. I am your host, Chris Plant, and I am so happy to have you here on this very special time of the year that falls between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Yes, it is the Game Awards season. But today's episode is actually a year in the making. During last Christmas break, having read my 500th best of list, my tummy stuffed full of turkey sandwich, and my brain a little bit buzzed on mulled wine, I had an idea for a very special end of the year feature. What if I talked to the creator of the Game of the Year, both before their game even came out, and then again months later, as the Game Awards began to trickle in? Imagine how different they might be swimming in their vault of gold coins. Or perhaps I would discover that despite all success, little had changed. Now, at the time, I was working at my old job as the editor-in-chief of Polygon.com, a website I still love and that you should still go read. I imagined my big idea then would become a flashy feature, that it would run alongside Polygon's Games of the Year list and the rest of our year in review coverage. All I needed to do was find the Game of the Year before everybody else. And I confess, naively, that in January, with the force of a major website behind me, this seemed, if not guaranteed, then at least possible. But then January passed, and February, and March, and as spring came, I finally realized, I guess accepted, something that should have been obvious from the very beginning. Even when you are working at a huge video game publication and you have access to hundreds of new video games, it is profoundly difficult to spot a game that will be the Game of the Year weeks before that game is on sale and months before critics even begin to assemble their best of lists. So I kind of sort of assumed I was cooked. But around April, I downloaded a humble indie game about a young man who must solve the mystery of a mansion that rebuilds itself every day. The clouds parted. The gaming gods, they had delivered to me the impossible. Weeks before its release, I played what I felt could be the first legit Game of the Year contender, Blueprints. Mere days before that pun-filled puzzle first-person adventure was released, I spoke with the game's director, Tanda Rose. The following week, the game dropped. It received dozens, if not hundreds, of effusive reviews, and it sold like hotcakes. A few weeks after that, attracting far less attention, understandably, my professional life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart. Ironically, that interview, meant to be a reflection of a moment in Tanda's life, became a turning point in my own. Now, without a job, I had no reason to transcribe the audio, and frankly, I never wanted to hear it again, partly because it reminded me of a different era, one that I wasn't at that time ready to process, and partly, if I'm being honest and selfish, it felt strange and kind of sad to listen to someone on the edge of tremendous success, knowing that the version of me on the very same call was about to head in the opposite direction. As Blueprints grew in popularity over the spring and summer, I spent most of that time getting my feet underneath me, building Post Games, the show that you're listening to right now. I needed to learn how to manage a Patreon, edit a podcast, find an ad partner, and the list it went on and on and on and on. Each week became a new conversation with another game developer, another critic, another YouTuber, and for a while I just considered tossing that Blueprints recording into my PC's trash bin, which makes no sense from an archival perspective because the WAV file really didn't take up that much storage. But earlier this fall, as my life returned to some semblance of stability, I decided to give the conversation a listen, and to my surprise, it brought me a lot of joy. It took me back to a time and a place that now I cherish, thanks to a very helpful therapist and some personal reflection. Hearing that conversation also made me proud of how far this show has come within the year, and it made me feverishly curious about where Tanda and Blueprints were now. So I decided to finish the project. It would be tough because it was interview meant for text feature, and now it needed to be warped into the audio show that you're listening to. Could it be polished into something approximating podcast quality sound? The answer is, sorta. If you don't mind some stammering and crosstalk, I think it more or less works. I will be real though, I managed to touch up the audio quality quite a bit, but I can't touch up like my interview technique. This interview is from April. It is me at my most awkward, in an era when my journalism wasn't meant to be heard, it was just meant to be read. But I have decided to embrace that and pair it with the second half of today's episode, a second interview with Tanda Rose from this past week. That conversation a great deal more podcast friendly. And so I present you two conversations with the creator of Blueprints, one on the eve of the game's release and the other on the eve of the Game Awards, for which Blueprints is nominated for Indie Game of the Year. It is a life-changing story, on the mic and behind it. This week on Post Games, life before and after Blueprints. Act 1, the days before release. A little Patreon bonus, how a Magic the Gathering site kept Blueprints alive. Act 2, the days before the Game Awards. Another little Patreon bonus. A Blueprints movie, a Blueprints sequel, Tanda tells all. Act 3, the news of the week. So let's open the front door and step inside. It is a new year and you want to eat better, but you still have no time to work with. You have no energy. You have so much going on in your life. Oh, what do? You do Factor. 2 minutes, real food, and you are done. You're not failing at eating healthy. You're failing at having 3 extra hours in every night. You're failing at not being a chef and wanting to do cleanup. Factor takes care of that. It has delicious food that is good for you. You got lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and none of the yucky stuff, no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners. It will offer you whatever you need to match your lifestyle. For me, Mediterranean diet, it really works well. But maybe you need something else, like a high-protein diet or GLP-1 support or ready-to-eat salads. Whatever it is, Factor wants to meet you on your page. Always fresh, never frozen, and like I said, ready in 2 minutes with no prep, no cleanup. Just chill. I use Factor. I think that you should too. Head to factormeals.com/postgames, 50 off, and use code postgames50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for a year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscriptions purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. Act 1, the days before release. Today's guest, Tanda Rose, assumed he'd be a filmmaker. For years, he climbed the ranks of Los Angeles sets until he found himself as the director of photography on flashy music videos and commercials. But despite his love for films, of which he still watches many a week, his living room filled with classic movie posters, it was an idea for a video game that consumed his life. 8 years ago, Tonda put a pause on film production and began work in earnest on Blueprints. Since then, he has been cramming day after day on a first-person puzzle game in which the player repeatedly explores a mansion in which the rooms appear in different positions each day. The goal? Reach the mysterious room 46. For this episode, as I've said, you will hear 2 different conversations with Tonda. The first conversation, it took place in April of this year, about a week before Blueprints' release, when his expectations were honestly quite modest. The second conversation, it took place just earlier this week in late November 2025, a few weeks ahead of the Game Awards, and though the game has been available for months and Tonda has found success, work has not yet stopped. Again, the audio in the first act, it has been salvaged from a rough online recording. Modern technology has been a huge help, but if the audio is too distracting, please feel free to skip to Act 2. With that said, let's get to it. You began this project, if I'm right, in 2016?
Correct.
And you spent the first year making the proof of concept, is that right?
First 3 months, actually. Yeah, I think we had a working build within 3 months.
And at this time, you had another job that you were basically doing.
Kind of. I mean, I was self-employed, so I run my own studio. It's the same studio, but like it was at that time geared toward commercial work and post-production work in Hollywood. And so, you know, I kind of control the knob. So like working another job is like, those first 3 months were every waking moment on the game. So I was not juggling time, so to speak.
So did you shift to making the game full time once you had that working version of it?
Yeah, I believe I had the first build done in 3 months, and then I had a few people play it. I think 4 people in total have played the 2016 build. But just based on how that went, I kind of knew that I was kind of onto something. And so I did decide to, at that point, I knew I was going to go all in. So I would say for the second year, I did as many commercial gigs as I could.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the year of grinding up as much finances as I could just by, you know, putting pedal to the metal. So not much happened in the game during that second year. It's kind of like, 6 months to like 18 months period. And then after that, I shut down the studio and dropped all the clients.
Okay, so by around 2018, you've dropped all of your clients.
Correct.
How long do you think it's going to take to finish making your game?
At that point?
Yeah.
6 months, yeah. Well, it was like, maybe it had gone to a year at that point, but I do know I had dropped a website that said 2017. And then from that point on, like the entire way, it was always 1 year away from completion.
How did that happen? Like in retrospect, now that you are releasing the game.
I mean, in retrospect, I feel like I've seen that pattern a lot with any indie indie project, especially solo dev things. You just see these complete, I wouldn't even say misgauge, but it's just like you have to pretend it's a year out because otherwise maybe the road ahead is too long. But I've just seen that countless where we're kind of, you know, it's kind of like horses chasing a carrot held on a stick in front of them, or maybe more apt as like a donkey or something, where if it's too far away, there's just not really an incentive to chase the carrot. But
yeah,
if it's close by and you think you can get there, that's certainly what kind of motivated me, is I always felt like I was in that final push.
How do you pay the bills during that?
So partly that was what working for that year was about trying to get as much capital together as possible. And then I have like a little website which I get some ad revenue for, which kind of helped keep us afloat throughout all the years.
Okay, we're definitely going to talk about Mythic Spoiler later,
Okay, cool.
Because I have a lot of questions about it, especially as it relates to this game. I think it's kind of incredible that these two things coexist.
Cool.
But first, you're moving another year, a pandemic happens during this period. Is there a point where you're considering killing the project?
Oh, yes, constantly. I wanted to do a feature film. Like that was kind of like always my dream. And so this project kind of came out of nowhere. I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue an industry in film with the eventual goal of making my own movie. I think that's, it's a common dream. It's something that's not kind of hard to succeed at. And so my first 10 years out here, I was a cinematographer. And then I moved from a cinematographer to directing sort of low budget music videos. And then kind of segued that into slightly bigger budget music videos. And then finally kind of directing commercials and handling commercial clientele. And I would say I really only had reached that level like maybe 6 months before Blueprints popped up into my life. I had like a pretty decent trajectory and a pretty good momentum. And so I remember once I had worked that 6 month to 18-month period where I had kind of been grinding out all these commercial gigs, I remember I kind of have enough budget now to like maybe finance a film. Like that was kind of the decision point there. And so at some point I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do the film now. I have the script, the time's right. Like you always want to act on those moments when the time's right. And then the other half of Doggy Bomb, Axel Havico said that if you make a feature film instead of Blueprints, I will do everything in my power to sabotage the film. I will, I'll be like the gremlin from the Twilight Zone episode on the wing and pulling out the engine of the plane because, I think he knew how special Blueprints was. So like he was determined not to let my dream kill my dream.
I get that confidence and I get the dream killing the dream. The part that's like hard for me to imagine is you climb a ladder, right? And you're like nearing the top. And then somebody says, but have you thought about trying a new ladder? And I can't imagine like building up all that cachet. You move to LA, you build up a business, you build up the foundation for literally the building that you want to construct. And then somebody says, yeah, but what if you put something else on the plot? And how do you, I guess, emotionally take that redirection?
I mean, I took it as a sign of strength. Like I knew it was something special, but like I don't necessarily have other people's perspective. Everything I'm working on is personal to me and cherished by me on some level. And so it's hard to evaluate how special that might be for other people. Even in making this game, I made it almost entirely just for myself without too much of a concern about how other people might receive it. So I think obviously that extra confidence was all I needed to commit at that point.
Yeah. Do you still see yourself as more of a filmmaker or a game maker?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this process has been a slow shift from one to the other, from filmmaker to game developer. And certainly I feel like after sitting down for 8 years working on a game, I probably don't have the physical stamina needed for filmmaking because working in the film, it's a lot more physically intense than game development. And so, I would probably need to build back up that stamina, at least the daily stamina to be able to get back there. But I'd say it's still in one of my bucket list items.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's large conversations around crunch in the video game industry, but as someone who started my life in film and TV production, I know how much that schedule can just blow out your life. Do you feel like that prepared you in any way for getting into game development?
Yeah, so, you got to get up early to get the magic hour. So I think there was a mentality in film, obviously, every day production is so expensive. So it always just makes sense that you want to work as hard as you possibly can because you have location fees, you have rental fees. At least from an independent filmmaker, like you really want to work, 14 hours on your shoot day because maybe you only have, you casted someone who's slightly high profile, but they're only available 4 days and you have to shoot them out. So I do think that there is there's an incentive to kind of get the most in each day. And I feel like that probably informed a lot of my drive and at least my idea of how many hours could be worked in the day. But I think I'm always the type to kind of hyper focus on a project. And I think even as a kid, I would kind of just create from, dawn till dusk, working on like a drawing or a book or a game, all of which I made as a child. And so maybe I was just kind of like geared for it. And I also kind of like just focused entirely on this let every other aspect of my life kind of wither.
That is relatable, I think, to most creative people, for better or worse, I guess.
Yeah. The art drives us.
I would love to just hear of what is a typical weekday or a work day in your life ahead of launch.
Oh yeah, so this month.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's not drastically different. I kind of I watch less movies is probably the only difference of my life this year versus previous years. So yeah, I wake up and I would say within 10 minutes I'm at the computer. I work from home, so it's pretty much the office is right next to me, is in the next room over from where I sleep. So yeah, then I'll just basically be there. I try to stand up every hour, but fail. And that's pretty much it till I eat. And then I, usually in the evenings, I'll play a game, which this month has been entirely UFO 50. And then I will, work until I can't stay awake any longer, which means I do not actually adhere to 24-hour days.
Yeah.
My days are more 25 and a half hours. So I roll over, every 20 or so days I lose a day. Because I'll just stay up until I can't stay awake anymore, which gradually means I'm just going to bed an hour later until I roll over. But I don't have any outside commitments, so it works out okay for me.
Do you do much social stuff, or is it truly just all the game?
Yeah.
Wow.
For 8 years, yeah.
Well, okay, so thinking about that, what's your best case scenario for the launch? And I mean that in two ways. I mean the best case scenario for the game, and then the best case scenario for you professionally.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I would think to be able to do another game, for this to succeed on any metric that allows me to do another game would be the ideal thing. I think, even if no one played this game and released it, I would probably be starting the next game and I would be figuring out how that's possible, whether or not, the website can sustain, which the website does take some extra work away from the game development. So that's something I would be looking to suspend to be able to focus more on the game, even though maybe it's okay to have a couple things in my life that forced me to step away. But so far I've done pretty good with just going all in.
This is not a judgment in any way. I've just interviewed a lot of people over the years, and I have to say that is a very modest best case scenario. And I appreciate it. But I guess almost a little surprised that there is not a glint of, it sells like a jillion copies and I win all the awards.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what's more important to me than that is like that the people that are going to love this game find it, right? And I think that was why, when I was looking for publishers, I was basically looking for whoever I thought could give me the biggest reach possible, simply because, especially after working on it so long, I was thinking like the only shame if no one else plays it is that, it won't find, the people that will really love it. So I don't need like the world to play it. But it would be nice if the people that would end up really loving it if they're able to find it.
Yeah. Well, let's play that one out. That's the darker side of this question. But what is a worst case scenario for you?
Oh, worst case scenario is that I'm not able to do another game, which I feel like the only world in that happens is if the game doesn't succeed and the website dies simultaneously. I think if I had to go back to commercial work, that would be very difficult after this process of working on something of your own for so long. But even the commercial work is really creatively fulfilling. So it's not a scary worst case scenario, I guess.
That's nice. What is your relationship with fans? Do you feel like you have one at this point at the game's release?
No, I think purposely I kind of want to be removed from the equation. Like I never, leading up throughout all this development, I never did any marketing or social stuff online. I don't really have any socials at all. So that was one of the big reasons, I was like, okay, I've been working on this game in secret for 8 years. I've not really even told anyone else about it outside of the world. And now that it is publicly announced, we have a community manager running the socials and stuff. So I still don't have to kind of put myself into that world, which just lets me focus purely on the art. Maybe I would have a different idea if this game wasn't so centric about secrets, but
yeah,
because it is, my instinct is to kind of remove myself from the equation because I don't want to give anything away too much or confirm or deny things. So I think it definitely, in terms of discourse about the game, I'm going to be pretty heavily removed from engaging with people that are curious.
Well, let's poke at that a little bit more. I read that you've worked with streamers as somewhat of a QA of the game and asked them not to stream the game. Is that right?
So yeah, so not really QA, just as pure just players. Like it was specifically there's not a survey or they're not looking for bugs. I just wanted to be able to watch people play the game naturally. And my idea with streamers was kind of threefold. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but first, they're probably one of the only people that won't feel self-conscious about being watched, which is a huge issue, I feel like, for any playtester if the developer's over their shoulder, or even if that they're later going to review your footage. I think that you're just not going to get necessarily a completely pure experience, right? They're going to play a little bit differently. And especially in a puzzle game where I feel like people oftentimes might feel judged. Even streamers don't really like to stream puzzle games a lot of the times because it's it's just a lot of intense scrutiny and it can kind of mess with your head. But if a streamer is already a puzzle game streamer, they've probably sort of conquered those issues, or at least they're less affected by them than other people. So that was my idea about streamers. It wasn't even about that they're able to be streamed or anything, but I was like, okay, they're probably going to give me the most natural playthrough I possibly can. The second reason is they'll technically know how to record themselves easily. They'll have the camera set up or stuff that they'll be able to. I didn't need a face cam or anything on, but they'll know how to record a play session.
Yeah.
And then the third reason was I was able to search them by the games they played. I don't have a database on strangers in the world, but there is a database on what games people have played on some streaming sites. And so I can look for someone who's played maybe 3 of these games that I think are kind of affinity titles. And then I think they might be interested, because I didn't want pure strangers. So I want to make sure that the people I'm making the game for, people like me, that the experience I'm creating is at least playing out the way I intended to.
Yeah, is you not asking them to stream it, is that part of also wanting to maintain the secrets of the game?
Yeah, 100%.
How do you feel knowing that the game will be out in a few days and right away, dozens, hundreds, maybe more will be streaming it? Does that give you an anxiety?
No, I mean, I think if you're watching if you're watching a stream, and this is something I kind of realized throughout this process, because I had never watched a game stream before ever. And I don't think I really was like, I would always just rather experience it myself, right, than watch someone. But it wasn't until I started going through the searching process that I realized, this is a really cool way to experience a game. And I think if you watched someone play the game entirely through the lens of someone else playing, that's a completely valid experience of the game. So me not wanting them to stream it was less about that access and more about I only wanted it to be streamed when the game is complete. We started playtesting 4 years ago. So they were playing much earlier iterations of Blueprints.
Interesting. So your idea of spoilers, it's not a spoiler for you for them to discover a secret through a streamer. Like, that is just as pleasurable as discovering the secret.
Right. But that's different than discovering the secret through a streamer's chat telling the streamer what to do.
Sure.
That's a spoiler. But if the streamer's discovering it on their own naturally, and you're there and watching and you get the experience, then you're having the same experience. It's the same thing if you're playing a game, next to someone on a couch and you're passing off the controller back and forth through a playthrough. I mean, that's how I actually play most of my games. So I feel like that's totally cool. And that's what it's like, I think, watching people play.
How long do you think it'll take the community to solve every one of the game's puzzles?
Well, interesting enough that the puzzles are not meant to be like super, super obtuse or cryptic. Like, they're all designed to be solved by a single individual without the need for community help. And given that I've heard of games that are actually much more difficult, like they actually require community help, and given that I've heard that they fall within a few days after the launch. I can't imagine like my game, which isn't even trying to be super difficult on that access. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not challenging, but it only takes like a lot of exploration. That's kind of like the way the game is designed. So it's challenging if you think you can solve things right away. But if you keep exploring, everything becomes more manageable, we'll say. And so I think it might take a little more time, but 1 week tops.
Perfect. What message do you have for yourself 8 months from now when I talk to you again?
8 months from now.
So this will be like December. The Game Awards will be here. People will be making this Game of the Year list. You'll know whether or not you are more than financially viable to make another video game. A different world.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, for good or bad, not letting hopefully I'm not becoming results oriented in the way that I'm letting this affect my decisions about what to do moving forward. I would hope that, if I'm super successful, I'm not getting, ideas of great grandeur about the next project. Because I don't know if I could handle anything bigger than Blueprints.
Do you fear success in any way?
I feel like it's a complete unknown to me, at least the public aspect of this type of success, where I feel like I've done pretty good in the other industries. And, even Mythic Spoiler was just totally created as like a fan site. And it just kind of blew up. So I've gotten tastes of dabbling in different things that have kind of gone on to kind of be some of the bigger things in their type of thing. Yeah, but I'm not sure what necessarily, but none of these have made me like a known figure, so to speak. So I'm not sure what that would be like.
Welcome to the first Patreon bonus section. Here we'll be talking about how a Magic the Gathering website made Blueprints possible, quite literally. I'll let Tanda tell you much more. If you're not a subscriber, no worries at all. We'll just go straight to Act 2. Act 2, life after the release of Blueprints and just before the Game Awards. This is a much more recent conversation with Tanda recorded just this week, if you're listening to this in the archive. In late November of 2025, Blueprints has been nominated for Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards, and we're about to find out how much or how little Tanda's life has changed. We are following up after months, but I wanna go to the moment right after we last chatted. We chatted right before the game's release, so I'd love for you to walk me through your emotions on launch week.
Ooh, so we talked before, because I didn't remember when that last conversation was.
Yeah, it's like 4 days before, and you're like, I hope it makes a little bit of money so I can make another game.
When we talked, the reviews hadn't come out yet.
No.
Yeah, because that embargo was, I think, 2 days before launch, so the reviews would have come out on April 8th. We launched on April 10th. So yeah, the reviews coming out was definitely like one of the craziest things ever, because it was just like, why are they all good? It's like, I know my game well enough to know that there should be a largely more disparate range of experiences, like there's going to be some people that just, they don't come from the tabletop world, or they're much more used to linear puzzle experiences. So I was to say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement. I was kind of like in shock that like, wow, everyone reviewing this game is kind of on the wavelength. And maybe that just helps that like there's enough people at some of the big games media places that they can give it to the person who's kind of likes these type of games. And so, yeah, like the reviews were obviously absolutely crazy. And we were the best reviewed game of the year on April 8th. We had it about 2 weeks before Clair Obscur came out. So
it was a great run.
Yeah, they gave us 2 weeks to be the king, and that was good enough, especially for an indie game of our scale. 2 weeks is so much more than like 15 minutes of fame, because, everyone was playing it during those 2 weeks.
What's your expectation then going into pressing publish then? Is it changing what you think sales are going to be? Are you worried about Steam reviews at that point?
I would say personally no on both types. My big objective in all this was just to get as many people to play the game as possible, and regardless of what it took. And I think I had conversations with Raw Fury, and I think that's why they pushed so hard and managed to get us on both Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, because to me, it was all about getting this into the hands of players. I think we were the second game ever to be on both PlayStation Plus and Game Pass, with Sea of Stars being the very first people that were ever on both services. So that was always cool. And obviously, I think that helped push the popularity too. But yeah, in terms of Steam reviews and stuff, I had a pretty good metric, and I knew that the more popular the game would be, then like the lower the Steam reviews would be, because the game is probably hyper targeted toward players like myself, tabletop geared people that also like puzzle games. Thankfully, more people than just that niche ended up liking it. And, I've gotten so many messages now, people that this is like the first puzzle game they've ever gotten into. And I'm like, oh, great. I hope it's a gateway to other great games. And likewise, a lot of people like, oh, I really hate, roguelike games. Of course, I didn't know I was making a roguelike basically the entire time, but
for 8 years.
Yeah, I knew that we were based on the same board games, so I knew there was going to be things, but I never really considered myself that, because I think I had always imagined there would be a much stricter definition of what one is, but it does seem over time that people have really relaxed on it, and certainly we share the core fundamentals of what now people generally consider roguelike. I would gladly take the mantle now.
Was there a specific moment that you can remember where you felt relief, or like you let your shoulders relax and you knew you were okay?
Release week was actually pretty stressful and rough. I mean, for me, it's not really about the public reception or the critical reception or sales or anything. I don't. To me, it was just about the bugs. And even though like we were pretty much like, we had been playtesting for 4 years. So I knew that for the vast majority of people, they will play and they won't find a single bug. But even if 1 in 20 people find a minor bug, that's still going to bug me, especially if it's something that pushes beyond their experience. So I pretty much went into hyper bug fixing mode, and I got to solve all these. And previously, if there was a bug or a problem with someone's save file, I would fix it individually because I just wanted them to have a great playthrough experience. And so I would spend, hours on an issue just to fix one particular thing for one particular person. So not being able to do that now that, thousands of people were playing was like, I still had the instinct, people would email me about an issue in their game and I would really want to like, send me your save file. Like, I'll try to sort this out for you. But very quickly, I realized we were operating at a whole nother scale where I wouldn't necessarily be able to help people individually. And that was tough.
I want to go back to the PlayStation Plus, Xbox Game Pass, getting this in front of a lot of people. That was always the goal for you. In September, you and Raw Fury announced that the game had reached 2 million players. And I know that's not total sales. That's the game is available on PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass. But like, by my back of the napkin math, and I'm no economist, you've done well.
Yeah.
I would say probably comfortable. Have you made any big purchase that you've always dreamed of?
I have made one big purchase, and that's this. I would show you. It's right here, but it's maybe too heavy to pick up, which is the Final Fantasy Tactics Evo's Chronicles box set, which is like huge. That's been my big thing. But I think I'm going to get a car because I haven't had a car for like 5 years. I have a bike that I use to get places. So I think that
that you live in Los Angeles, right?
Yes, but that also means I'm in walking distance of like everything I need, or at least biking distance.
That's fair. What reaction from critics or players most surprised you? I mean, I know that the abundance of positive reviews surprised you, but was there a specific detail that you just didn't think somebody would see in the game?
Give me a second on this one. It's a good question.
Why, thank you.
I mean, I would love to think of like a general thing. I think it was individual things that I saw in the game that were like the most surprising, because I had been watching playtesters play the game for a very long time. And by watching, I mean watching full playthroughs. I had my playtesters screen record their videos. So I had seen a lot, and I had seen enough of a sample size, maybe 100 or so people playing the game, that I had a pretty good understanding of the typical, sort of progression routes. Obviously, the game is created to be very nonlinear and very robust. But as soon as it hit the open world, we were seeing strategies develop and routes that I had never seen before, and it was cool that the game was robust enough. I always knew that it would surprise me, which, of course, it's terrifying from a QA point of view, like I was saying earlier, because you suddenly have people doing stuff that you've never seen before. But yeah, I think that was kind of the most exciting.
Yeah. Is every puzzle solved?
That's something I will probably never fully answer, My common response is that there's always some mysteries left in the game, because mysteries, like, it doesn't have as granular a definition as a puzzle, which has a more manufactured thing. I mean, a mystery could be a puzzle, right? But it could also just be, something left unsaid that the player needs to work out either intuitively or by theories, So yeah, there's mysteries in the game, we'll say.
You mentioned earlier that anxiety is bugs pop up early on. I know there are some other things that you've been tweaking or preparing via updates. One of the ones that I could never have imagined, because I am not colorblind before I played it, is colorblind mode. And I don't know how you solve for it. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it and localization.
We have been working so long on colorblind mode.
Can you give us some examples for people? Because it is a game that is fundamentally not just about colors, but about the way that they are described. What are some of the challenges that you're running into as you're trying to solve for this?
I've done a lot of different research throughout all this because I didn't know any of this going in. And I think a lot of this is just due to my ignorance. I think because of the way I did it, if I did not experience it with my playtesters, because this is my very first game, and I have relatively inexperience, I wasn't even aware that people could get motion sick during first-person games. Like, this wasn't even something I could consider that was something that could happen to humans. I knew you could get motion sick in VR, but I didn't know you could get motion sick in just first person. So that was the first time I saw that. I was like, uh-oh. So we're also trying to work on some stuff, but a lot of that was just like, oh, I needed to just do research. And the same thing with colorblind. There's so many different types of colorblind. There's like the 3 main cone types, and then there's 2 types per each of those deficiencies in cone receptors. So I have done a lot of research and tried to figure out a way to make it work, but it's really difficult in Blueprints because color's used in so many different ways, and it's not just like this one puzzle where we can just replace the colors with like a pattern, because there's words that are colored in certain color text, and you can't just put a pattern over a word. So we've had to gotten really creative because we needed something robust enough that could cover everything in the game, while also not necessarily giving you more information than the normal experience would be. Because obviously, if you go in a room and you see one thing in the room that the colorblind support now says is red, you suddenly are getting a little more hint than most players would be that this item is important, or at least the color of this item is important. So that was really tough for me because I wanted to figure out a way to give them an experience just like everyone else. When I launched the game, it was a pretty high priority. All of the focus leading up to the game was like I barely got all the gameplay elements in right in time, so I hadn't actually started the colorblind support, but we have been working on it for a few months. It's going to come in an update, and it's pretty robust. It'll cover every single type.
Can you give an example of what it looks like?
It's a combination of color patterns for the things that regular appear, and then as much of an immersive toggle that labels things as different colors, cool. We'll say. Nice. When you're on colorblind mode, we do also try to make the colors as vibrant as perfectly possible. That's not going to work for people with very extreme colorblind, so they're probably going to have to use our label system. We're basically using all 3 methods, including a bespoke labeling method. The labeling method is not as immersive as I would want, but if you are looking at 2 things and you're like, is that red or orange? You should be able to hold the space bar and the labels will just come up. And that works for everything in the game. If you're not sure about a color, you can press that for definitive, but it's just a quick label that you can turn on and off. But it's not recommended you play with it because it'd be color text everywhere. I tried to make it as pretty as I could, but it is a little immersion breaking.
Just on the side of that, is this game going to be localized? Is it possible to localize this game?
A lot of people say it's impossible. I say it's possible in terms of a very hard challenge. With as much humility as possible, it might be one of the hardest, if not the hardest game to localize. It's like trying to translate a poem where every part of the poem is important, right? And so there are some poems that it's like every line of this poem is 5 syllables. It's in rhyming couplets, and we need to nail the translation of every word. That's kind of an impossible task to translate it into another language while still maintaining all those formal structures of a poem. And of course, poetry has been translated everything. And I would guess it's one of the most fun things to translate because you get to, it's like a puzzle in itself, right? Like you get to use your own creativity to figure out how to best represent the essence of this poem. Are you going to still make it 5 syllables? Is it still going to be rhyming couplets? But in order to pull that off, you might have to be a lot looser with the literal definition of the words. And I don't want to spoil all the things in Blueprints, but we'll say there are many, many things that are operating on very similar axes where you don't even have the freedom because a lot of the hints and the puzzles are tied to those formal structures. So it's it would be a massive undertaking, but it's an undertaking I would love to do. It's just a matter of time. I kind of, by my estimation, it would probably take me just working it out with a localization team, probably like a year per language. So certainly I can tell you it's probably not feasible to have it widely translated in lots of languages, and every language is a big commitment. And it's a tough situation because it's like, I've been working on this game for 8 years and I really want to move on. I have a lot of plans to create other things in this medium and other mediums. And so it's a trade-off. It's something I think I would enjoy doing as a challenge, but I haven't committed myself to a decision of like, I'm going to undertake this challenge. So,
well, let's talk about the present and the future to some degree. What is your average day like now?
My average day, it's pretty much the same. I'm not working quite as intensely. I would say for the 2 years leading up to launch, I was probably working 12 to 13 hours a day. A lot of people think, oh, that's a lot, but it's not that much if you don't have anything else in your life. I've never had a work-life balance. I just work. That's just all there is in my life. So that's not too bad because that means I can work on the game and then I'll watch a movie or play a game. That's just pretty much my day-to-day. So I would say that was probably not sustainable, just intensity-wise. For the first few months after launch, I was working not quite as intense, but a similar level of intensity in terms of trying to fix the bugs like we were talking about and just try to overall increase stability. After we achieved that, which took a few months, I kind of went down and now I'm kind of in like recovery mode, working like 4 hours a day, which is so alien and drastic to me. At 4 hours, you're barely getting started. That's like 2 hours of warming up. You just get into something. I feel like productivity wise, I've never felt so useless in a way. I'm working on the last few features. There's one big update of Blueprints coming up that I'm slowly chipping away at that just has the last few elements that I was not able to finish for the release, which includes an arcade cabinet mini game. That's just kind of like an 8-bit mini game, and then an animated cat which inhabits the house. And then there's just a few balancing tweaks and things, and then a whole bunch of final passes. Like there's a few things that never had sound effects. That really bugs me. Like just stuff like that, just slowly piecing away. I have a big list of stuff that I'm slowly getting through.
Well, in April, you had said something similar about your social life. I think you actually said, I have zero social life, and I've had zero for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
Are you spending time with people now? Like, how are you using the other 20 hours in your day?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good friend group, but it's like we get together twice a year. So it's not a big time commitment. Twice a year, we get like a sort of vacation house in like a city. We all chip together and then we go and like just play games, video games and board games for like a week straight. And then the other event is very similar, except that's a sort of more designed experience. And that's an experience that I usually design that's like 3 days, but more of like a custom. I don't know how much it's like a puzzle hunt because I've never done a puzzle hunt, but it's like a gamified weekend experience. It's like a lot of the ideas from Blueprints actually came from those sort of events.
And now I am very jealous of the people who get to play real life Blueprints. That sounds awesome.
But that's kind of how I've balanced my life in terms of like, instead of like weekly fun stuff, we're more just chatting on Discord and then actually getting together, twice a year.
What was going on when you learned about Blueprints' Game Awards nomination?
Yeah, this was cool because I think this was always something in April when the game came out and the critical review came out, like everyone was talking about it like that. I had always assumed that, okay, like if it's a really weak year, like maybe we'll get in, but I had always assumed there would be some really heavy hitting sort of AAA behemoths that would be coming out. And, we're an April release. We're probably going to be popular, in a very short bubble, but then probably people will forget about us by the end of the year, which I was fine with. I was like, that's typically what happens when you have like these sort of flash in the pan moments. And I felt very lucky to have that. But I had always assumed there would be some big AAA giants. So I was thrilled that it wasn't actually AAA giants. It was indie giants, which that made me really happy. When Silksong finally dropped their date, which of course none of us expected because I think we had all kind of thought that. And I'm a huge Hollow Knight fan, so like I was super excited. But I was like, okay, that's probably the indie slot for Game Awards. And then I think it was like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, like Hades 2 was like, we're coming out 1.0. And I was like, okay, that's it for the indies. I'm really happy that a lot of people also consider Clair Obscur an indie, because for me, that just shows like, I love the narrative being that this is the year of indies. This is kind of a watershed year for indie games being represented. And so I'm super happy that if you look in the Game Awards in the main category, that it's like half indies. And for the first time ever, you know, we've never had more than one. Some years we get no indies in the main category. So I think it's really cool because I think a lot of people view indies in a weird way. And of course, everyone in the know knows the indies are where like a lot of the greatest design work and bold and inventiveness is going down. And so I think anytime you have a year like this that might shake people's internal bias about what an indie game is, you know, it's not just like cute, cozy pixel art. You know, there's games even you with your AAA taste would find incredibly appealing. And I think that we got last year, Balatro broke down a lot of barriers because it finally got people kind of unsuspectingly into playing some really great design. So I was happy to be in that. And of course, thrilled that I managed to get into both of the indie categories. Given that if you look at the indie categories this year, it's not even fair. It's like, if you talk about low grassroots indie projects, they were pretty much boxed out by like all these huge behemoths of indie titans. It was a tough year to sort of ride the rodeo, especially releasing in April. So I just felt incredibly lucky, because that's not even talking about all the viral hits like Peak, Abiotic Factor, Repo, Megabonk, Ball X Pit. There's so many games bigger than Blueprints. Like these games all did like triple our numbers. It was a great year for indie games.
What would a win mean to you?
Oh, a win probably means more people check out the game, which I'm always a fan of. It would mean I get a trophy for my trophy room, which is cool, just as a Blueprints fan. But I've never been like an ultra competitive type. I'm fine with Silksong winning, as long as it's Silksong. I feel like Clair Obscur is going to get enough and box out enough of other stuff. So if Silksong can get some stuff too, because I think that's a tremendous accomplishment from Team Cherry.
Am I understanding this right? That if Blueprints did win, the Game Award would be added to the trophy room in the game Blueprints?
It would probably be added to my trophy room. Yeah, like my I will probably, because we just won Golden Joystick for Best Indie just a few hours ago, actually. That's the first one. So I'd already been thinking like I'll probably make like a mini trophy cabinet case, like mirrored after the one in game, to try to keep the Blueprints trophies, however many the game manages to get. And this year, it's not going to be much. It might just be the Golden Joystick in a case by itself. But we'll see. It's a fun thing. I feel like this, I don't imagine, like, even if I release more games, I don't imagine I will luck out as much and be in this position often. So this might be my only time to be a part of these awards ceremonies and stuff. So it's kind of cool as someone that knew nothing about the industry pretty much the entire time I was making it. So this is all brand new to me.
Now the other half of the Patreon bonus. Will we get a Blueprints movie or a sequel? What is Tantarosa's future? Where is Doggy Bomb going? We talk about all of that and so much more, including what he would have told himself at the beginning of this nearly decade-long project. And as usual, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, no worries. We're going to go straight to the news of the week, and you're going to hear about one of the more controversial and surreal games. It's called Horses. It involves naked people who have horses for heads, and it is currently being blocked from being published on Steam. So either way, you have so much to listen to. The news of the week. Friends, it is Thanksgiving week when I am recording this, so the video game news is slow as public relations professionals and game designers alike sink into their PTO. Except for indie designers, who don't really have PTO because that's just not how indie life works. Ask me, an independent content creator. So, I will just give you the few big headlines. Do you love Fallout? Do you also like Prestige TV? The second season of the Fallout TV series, set in New Vegas, is set for a December 17th release date. Why am I telling you this a few weeks early? So, friend, you can join me in catching up on the first season, which I remember enjoying, and then inexplicably stopped watching halfway through, which is kind of my relationship with a lot of television. So, I'm happy to go back and finish that up. Elsewhere, and in less fun news, developer Santa Ragione faces an existential threat following a decision by Steam to prohibit the sales of its latest game, Horses. The first-person horror sends the player to a farm where nude humans wear horse heads, and I'm honestly not sure what else just yet. I haven't played it. But the content warning says the following. This game contains scenes of physical violence, psychological abuse, gory imagery, mutilation, blood, depictions of slavery, physical and psychological torture, domestic abuse, sexual assault, suicide, and misogyny. The inclusions of these elements is intended to depict and characterize a fictional world and its fictional inhabitants. The presence of these elements is not an endorsement of them, nor do they reflect the beliefs or the values of the creators. Those are admittedly intense subjects. They also have been depicted in hundreds of other games on Steam. So why can't it be published on that platform? According to the developer's FAQ page, the studio was initially told by Steam that the game wouldn't be allowed to be sold on the platform following a submission of a near-final build way back in 2023. The notice from Steam didn't get into specifics, but stated, "While we strive to ship most titles submitted to us, we found that this title features themes, imagery, or descriptions that we won't distribute." And later continued, "Resubmissions of this app, even with modifications, will not be accepted." A new statement this week from Steam explained a little bit more about the review process. After our team played through the build and reviewed the content, we gave the developer feedback about why we couldn't ship the game on Steam, consistent with our onboarding rules and guidelines. A short while later, the developer asked us to reconsider the review, and our internal content review team discussed that extensively and communicated to the developer our final decision that we were not going to ship the game on Steam, which provides some clarity and also raises more questions. This statement from the studio producing Horses gets at the stakes. We are committed to producing challenging adult storytelling. Horses uses grotesque, subversive imagery to confront power, faith, and violence. We reject subjective obscenity standards and believe this kind of moralizing censorship evokes a darker past in which vague notions of decency were used to silence artists. Games are an artistic medium, and lawful works for adults should remain accessible. We respect players enough to present the game as intended and to let adults choose what to play. Lawful works should not be made unreachable by a monopolistic storefront's opaque decisions. Steam publicly downplays human curation in favor of algorithmic sales optimization, yet intervenes with censorship when a game's artistic vision does not align with what the platform owners considers acceptable art. Steam's behavior passively shapes which titles developers feel safe creating, pushing preemptive censorship. Over the past few days, we've seen a number of reports pressing Steam for more details and clarity into the matter. In the meantime, Horses will be released in early December on a number of other platforms, including Epic Games Store, the Humble Store, GOG, and itch.io. But Steam is by far the biggest storefront for video games, and the studio behind Horses claims that not being available on it puts their team in financial jeopardy. As always, I like to end on something a little bit happier. So, Death Stranding 2. It has been classified for PC release by the ESRB. No release date, no confirmation from Sony, but listen, I take the wins where I can get them. And the news that Death Stranding 2 will be playable on my PC at some point in the not-so-distant future, that's good news by me. And that is the news of the week. Listeners, we have reached the 46th door of this episode. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the crumbling mansion of my mind. Next week, how do the Game Awards actually work? Before you watch the Game Awards, learn from games journalism veteran and the only dedicated Game Awards beat reporter, Ollie Welsh. You'll hear about the history of the awards, the rules, the likely winners, and all these other little gory details. You're going to love it. A reminder, Post Games supporters get the show and the newsletter early on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. At the latest, it's usually much earlier than that. They get extra acts and bonus materials. They get a video version of every episode. This week, Patreon listeners got 2 extra segments, both from our guest Tanda, one in April about the website that funded Blueprints, and another from November about the possibilities of a Blueprints movie and or a sequel. You'll want to check them out. Plus, each month, subscribers get a bonus episode available in audio and video form. You can get the backlog of Video Game Journalism 101, a 5-part series, or coming up, you can get the new episode, A History of the Creation of Pokemon, the years leading up to the release of the original games. It is a blast, and I think that you'll enjoy it. Plus, no ads on anything. Subscribe to the Patreon at patreon.com/postgames. Subscribe to the newsletter for free at post.games. Postgames logo by James Barham, theme by Mark Sparling, and a special thank you to this week's guest, Tanda Rose. Like the show, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, or share the show with a friend. Please, you've made it this far. Taking that energy and just leaving a little bit of a review on Apple, it'll help the show go so much further. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.